Do you want to start stocking up on food? If so, I highly recommend you learn how to vacuum seal. Hello everybody, my name is Deb from Just Do Something Homestead, and today we're going to talk about the benefits of vacuum sealing your foods. And if you are new to our channel, let me be the very first person to say welcome. I have been vacuum sealing food for well over 15 to 20 years, and recently I just had a scare. Somehow I got pantry moths in my pantry. And if I hadn't vacuum sealed all of my dry goods into jars, I would have lost them. And if you know anything about me, you know that I keep a tight ship. And so the thought of having moths in my pantry was devastating. In fact, there is one right there. So what in the world caused these moths to move into my pantry? I narrowed it down to two sources. The first was my dehydrator. And as you can tell, my dehydrator has been booted out of the house. What happened was the tray on the bottom had crumbs. Those crumbs were mostly from corn, and that's where the pantry moths were eating. They still needed a way to get into our home. Thankfully, our pantry is off of our garage. It is not in our kitchen. And what we discovered was our chicken feed had pantry moths in it. So my husband had carried it into the garage and put it in there, and they had hatched out of the bag and entered my pantry. Mystery solved. And just like that, I was reminded why I always vacuum seal my dried goods. So the number one reason that I vacuum seal is to keep out critters and rodents. And that's exactly what my food did. I do not have any bugs in all this food. Number two, it extends the best by date. In fact, I have some of these items I have stored for up to 10 years and they are still fresh. Vacuum sealing keeps out moisture, and that's how a lot of dry foods end up going stale. So if you put these in a jar, you vacuum seal them, take out the air, they're going to last longer. And the last reason that I vacuum seal is savings. I was able to find these crackers just this week for $2.29. I checked the best by date. They're good until November, but I can vacuum seal them and they'll be good for years. And that saves me money. And according to the news, there is a sudden surge in people who are stocking up on food. I wonder why that is. And whether you think something is going on or not, there is one thing we can all agree on. The price of groceries is ridiculous and it's not going to go down. So what I'm doing, I'm stocking up. All right, Deb, we now know why we want to vacuum seal. Let's talk about how we do it. This is going to be a basics on how to vacuum seal the products that you purchase from the store. The very first thing you're going to need is a vacuum sealer, and I am showing two of my absolute favorites. I use both of these pretty equally. But if I could only have one, this one would by far win. This is the Food Saver FM5200 series. And I really should have written down the date that I bought this. It was either 11, 12, 13 years ago. It's been a long time. This time of year, I use it almost daily, and I have never had a false seal. This little cute guy is the rechargeable handheld Food Saver. This one stays in my kitchen so that if I'm making, let's say, rice, and right here's a container of rice. So I take out what I need for the meal, and then I'm going to reseal it quick because rice is not something I'm going to use every day. I might only use it every few weeks. So I reseal it with my handheld instead of taking out my big one. And with both of these, you're going to need the adapters. And these did not come with either of my Food Savers. I had to order this separate. This one says right on it, Food Saver Jar Sealer. These are the attachments. This is what goes on the top of the jar and connects to your Food Saver. When I purchased mine, I was able to get a set of two for $13.99 off of Amazon. This is the one that you use for regular mouth jars, and this is for wide mouth. The next thing you need are the lids or the flats, and these do not have to be brand new. So if you've used them before for vacuum sealing, you can use these over and over again. Same thing with the rings. Vacuum sealing is a little bit different. After you seal a jar, you're going to want to store it with the ring on. Next, you're going to need jars, and jars come in all different sizes from itty bitty tiny ones on up to the half gallon. You're actually more concerned with the size of the lids, whether it's wide mouth like this one or regular mouth. Three additional things that are helpful but definitely not necessary is a Sharpie, some all-natural cupcake liners, and this is my wide mouth funnel that goes on the top of the jar so I don't pour everything all over my counter. For the most part, I try to only buy organic food, which I have some cereal, granola, and some flour. But Mr. Jimmy, he likes his crackers, and he doesn't always like the organic ones. So what we're going to be sealing today are some Ritz. Well, here's a question for you. Can the pantry moths get into something that's sealed like these crackers? They absolutely can. Pantry moths are often found in foods. In fact, some of the foods they are really attracted to is flour, granola, cereals, grains, birdseed. Any of those will attract bugs. And because of that, many people will throw these into their freezer thinking they're going to kill them all before they ever hatch. But somehow, some way, just like me, you end up with some in your pantry. And honestly, the only way you can keep them out of your food is to seal them in a container that insects can't get in. This is why vacuum sealing is so very important. Technically, I could take these crackers, put them in this jar, and use one of these lids that you can buy at Walmart, put it on top, and screw it shut. But what if there was something in these crackers? It wouldn't take long, maybe about a month or so, and you would start seeing fine powder down on the bottom. That's because even with this plastic lid on the jar, there is air in that jar, and those bugs are living. Vacuum sealing removes air. If you remove the air, nothing can survive in that environment. All right, enough grossing you out. What we're going to do now is I'm going to fill this jar with these crackers. In our home, I usually use the half-gallon size just because I can fit a lot in them. And since I can reseal in between using some of these crackers, they're not going to get stale. Make sure you wash your jars in hot, soapy water and then dry them completely. I actually don't like to use the jar until the next day because moisture is the killer of your foods. For the most part, you can vacuum seal any dried goods. There are some you need to have some caution with. Nuts is one of them. Nuts has a lot of oil. You can vacuum seal them, but they're going to get rancid. The same with potato chips, pretzels, things that have a high oil content. Another food that I don't recommend vacuum sealing would be things such as raisins. Those are dried fruits because the moisture content is too high. Banana chips, if they're crunchy, I have done strawberries. They have to be completely dried, but raisins are still pliable, so do not vacuum seal your raisins. And believe it or not, all 8 stacks of these crackers fit into this jar, so now we're going to seal it. Anytime you are using something such as crackers or powders, I take my clean hand and I wipe the rim of that jar. Next, I put the flat on top. Remember, it does not need to be a new one. And then I'm going to take the adapter and push it on top of that lid until it pops. If you are buying a food saver, make sure it has the port. Most of them are up here in the right top. But if you don't have this accessory, then all you can vacuum seal are bags, and that's what this bottom section is for. But if it has a port, you can do jars. And you're going to take that port and plug it into the top of the sealing on your jar. Now it's just a matter of turning on the power. Then I'm going to go to accessory and I'm going to push start. What it's going to do is going to make a lot of noise as it sucks out all the air. All right, when it's finished, it will shut off automatically. Then remove the port and the jar sealer lid. At this point, you want to verify that it has sealed the jar. And what I do, you're going to look for the center. It should be a little sunken in, but pull on that lid and it should not come off. If it stays on there, it is definitely sealed. Oh, this is a little crazy to read. I believe it's saying November 21st, 2024. So a lot of people ask me, how do you determine the length that you can store it? For things like crackers where you have multiple ingredients in it, I store it for 1 year past the best by date. If you have single ingredient items such as beans and rice, they can go for at least 10 years. But when you start talking about other products like flour, it typically only lasts about 2 or 3 years. It all starts coming down to how it's stored. If you're able to store these items in a dark, cool location, they're going to last a whole lot longer than if they're just sitting in your kitchen like these are right here. These are the items that I use definitely weekly. With my Sharpie, I wrote Ritz crackers, best by November 21st, 2025. And all that leaves is to put on the ring. All right, and this one is ready to store. The reason you store these with their rings on, it's the opposite of canning, is that if you have a lid that pops for some unknown reason, you're going to keep most of those critters out of there until you realize that the seal has popped. If you didn't and it got bumped, you could end up spilling it all over the place. So definitely store it with the ring on. Next, I'm going to do some cereal, and after seeing those Pantry Moths, my goodness, I don't want anything that is not sealed. I fit 2 boxes in one of these half-gallon jars. This lid I actually had found, and it says organic cereal, so I'm going to use that one. Now, this one says Best by 2026, and if I look at that, yep. Best by, so add a year, it would be 2026. Add the jar sealer attachment. Make sure it thumps on there. Plug in the port. It's already got power on, and turn on accessory. Whew, it's noisy today. Sometimes it's louder than other times. Remove the port. And the lid. Check the seal. It's on there good. So I put on the ring and I store it in a cool, dark location, such as my pantry, full of moths at the moment. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to do flour, because it's just a little bit different. There is no need to freeze your flour. In fact, I don't freeze it on purpose because I don't want any moisture in my jars. When doing flour, I always use my funnel, and it looks like it's got too much flour. What are you going to do? What I'm going to do is shake it down, and this is going to cause this to settle. So thump it around, and you will be amazed how much this flour goes down. It has settled probably 3 or more inches. So at this point, I'm going to add some more to bring it up to about here. There is one added step when you are vacuum sealing powders such as sugar, flour, confectionery sugar, anything pancake mix that is light and fluffy, and that is to use a cupcake liner. What you want is a barrier between that powder and your vacuum sealer. If you don't have a barrier, it's going to literally suck this powder into your sealer and ruin it. If you don't have cupcake liners, you can use a coffee filter. You can even cut a circle out of a paper towel. Then vacuum seal it the same way you did the others. This one you especially have to make sure there's no powder on the rim. And there you have it. In just a matter of minutes, I was able to vacuum seal an entire box of crackers, 5 pounds of flour, and 2 boxes of cereal. And as far as my pantry, as I said, it's not connected to my kitchen, thank goodness. But there are a few things that I'm doing to remove those moths. One of them, I have these moth traps, and what you're seeing, it's definitely catching them. So there's far fewer than when I first started. The other thing, I've made sure there's no food source. If there's no food, they're not going to stay here. And lastly, I've been removing everything out of here, scrubbing it all down, and cleaning it. And for my faithful subscribers, I just want to say thank you. I had so few videos this summer, not because anything had happened, but because life was crazy. We are still in a major drought here in West Virginia, so most of my awake time is in the garden. And actually tomorrow, my students return for school. So it's really going to start getting crazy, but I truly appreciate the dedication of these subscribers. You are the best. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. Have a blessed day, everybody. Bye-bye.